Hi everyone, this is my discussion post for solution-focused brief therapy versus narrative therapy. The first thing that I noticed was that both of these therapies seem pretty similar to me. Solution-focused and narrative both require the client to do a lot of work in the therapy session with looking at their story. So with solution-based therapy, the client is looking at how they can create a solution around their problem. And with narrative therapy, they're looking at how they could rewrite their story. And I found that that's a lot of work to put on a client who may be coming in overwhelmed or struggling. And I found that that was similar for both of them, that we're requiring the client to do some soul searching, really. As far as the differences, the big difference that I saw was that solution-based therapy, the client gets a lot of perspective from the therapist of how you could create a solution or what that looks like. And with narrative therapy, there's really not a ton of therapist, perspective in the fact that when we're asking someone to rewrite their story, we want them to rewrite it, not for the therapist to rewrite it. As far as strengths and limitations of each therapy, I thought a good strength of solution-focused brief therapy is that we're requiring the client to think about solutions, which builds skills for them for when they do become overwhelmed. They can use that skill later on in life, and later on in other problems. I also think a great strength about SFBT is that using the scaling technique and that giving clients a way to express how they are feeling with numbers can sometimes help them when they can't really express with words where they may be with their anxiety or overwhelmed feelings. As far as just limitations to SFBT, I find that the limitation may be when someone is so overwhelmed that they can't think of a solution, and where maybe the therapist is going to have to do a little bit more perspective building with them, because there are times when you can become so overwhelmed that you can't think of a solution, and so that was kind of the downside that I saw to that. For narrative therapy, I thought one of the great strengths of this is giving clients the opportunity to rewrite their story the way that they would want it to play out. I think this can be really healing, especially for people who may have gone through something traumatic or maybe going through some type of loss. As far as it being as far as limitation for this theory, I felt that the limitation was very clearly shown in the video that we saw this week, where the client just had a really hard time with how to narrate the differences they would want to see. He was really struggling with, I don't really know how to rewrite this story. And so I think that that could be a pretty big limitation to this theory. As far as them being compatible or incompatible with the Christian perspective, I found SFBT a little bit incompatible with the Christian perspective in the fact that having clients create their own solutions is great. However, at the same time, it kind of takes the power of Christ away from that scenario because we're relying on ourselves to create the solution. And as far as narrative therapy, I found this was actually pretty compatible with Christianity and with the Christian perspective because Christ created us as new beings when we accept him and when he died for us. And so looking at it in that perspective, narrative therapy and rewriting our story, I think is very compatible with Christ. As far as looking at limitations for creating measurable outcomes, I think both of these we could definitely measure the outcome with. SFBT, we can figure out if a client is able to create solutions to their problems by the end of their therapy with us. And we can also see if a client is able to rewrite their narrative by the end of narrative therapy. So I found that both of these don't really have too many limitations in measuring outcomes. So that's my discussion post.